I'm Marissa. I'm 34 years old. I experienced the greatest shock of my life. I inherited an unexpected fortune. But on my way home, a car accident changed everything. When I opened my eyes in the hospital, the greatest pain wasn't my broken bones. It was the absence of the one who should have been by my side. My husband, Ethan. Before I dive into my story, I want to know, where are you watching from today? And as you listen, let me know in the comments how this story makes you feel or if you've ever experienced something similar. Your thoughts mean a lot to me and I'd love to hear your perspective. When the call came, I was answering emails at the kitchen table, halfway through lukewarm coffee and a list of little problems that always seemed to multiply. The leaky faucet, the misfiring radiator, the way the bedroom window rattled whenever a truck passed on Maple Street. It was a Wednesday, ordinary in every way except for the name that lit up my phone. Miss Hale? This is Andrew Collins from Collins and Myers. I represent your grandfather, Richard Leland. I'm calling about his estate. My grandfather. A man whose voice I remembered as cedar and winter mint, whose presence was a shadow at the edge of childhood photos. We had not been close. We had not been anything really. He and my mother stopped speaking when I was 7, and the rest of my memories of him were more flavor than narrative. Expensive cigars, cufflinks that caught light like coins, stories about old brick factories converted into art spaces. It had been years since I'd said his name out loud. Of course, I said and set my mug down with care like the ceramic had become a balm. Is everything all right? I'm sorry for your loss, he said gently, and somehow that was the first moment I truly understood that the man in my head, cedar and mint and cufflinks, was now in absence. We arranged to meet at his office downtown. When I hung up, the kitchen seemed to have tilted a few degrees. The radiator popped. A neighbor slammed a door. I looked at the time, 11:14, and typed a quick message to Ethan. Got a call from a law office about Grandpa Leland. Going to meet the attorney. Might be important. Love you. A typing bubble appeared, then vanished, then reappeared. Finally, okay. Text me when you're done. I'm in the middle of calls. The middle of calls. Ethan always seemed to be in the middle of something. Closing a deal, onboarding a client, reshuffling a deck of priorities that never once seemed to contain me. I tried not to read into it. He'd been stressed. We'd both been stretched thin. It was just a day. Collins and Myers occupied a chandeliered corner suite in a building so old the elevator hummed like a cello. Mr. Collins met me in the lobby himself. Late 40s, steady eyes, tie the color of pewter. His handshake was warm, the way people are when they have to deliver strange news and want you to feel safe while receiving it. In his office, the blinds were open to a mild sky. He gestured to a leather chair and set a thick, pale folder in front of me. Your grandfather held to the old ways, he said. Paper. Witnesses. Nothing in the cloud unless absolutely necessary. The letter was on the top. My name in my grandfather's precise hand. Marissa. The scent of paper and a faint trace of something medicinal. I read. If this is in your hands, I have stepped into the next room. I have not earned your affection, but I have thought of you more than I allowed myself to say. You have your mother's laugh when you allow it and a will that is entirely your own. The factories made me money. Regret made me poorer. I would like to balance one of those accounts. I leave you the Coventry property and the remainder of my liquid holdings. Do not mistake wealth for wisdom. Spend on what multiplies love, time, truth, courage. RL. Remainder of his liquid holdings, I repeated as if the phrase were a foreign fruit on my tongue. What is that? What number is that? Mr. Collins folded his hands. After taxes and charitable disbursements, just over 8 million. The Coventry property appraises at approximately 2 million, though there are historical protections that complicate any potential sale. 8 million. The number opened a trapdoor in my stomach and I fell through it, past the radiator, past Maple Street's trucks, past the leaky faucet and the bedroom window and everything else that had ever felt bigger than me. I don't know what to say, I whispered. You don't have to say anything today, he said. You sign here to acknowledge receipt. We'll begin the probate process. I'll walk you through each step. I signed. The pen left a glossy trail like wet bark. When I handed it back, my fingers trembled. He noticed and slid a glass of water across the desk. I drank and the simple act of swallowing brought me back into my body. On the sidewalk outside, the city sounded brighter, like after rain. I took out my phone and typed to Ethan. Real. He left me the Coventry place and the rest. It's a lot. Can we talk? I want to see you. The typing bubble appeared, then vanished. 5 minutes passed. 10. A bus sighed at the curb. Finally, proud of you. Can't talk yet. Big afternoon. Later. Proud of you. The phrase was perfectly shaped and perfectly empty, like the bow on a box you hadn't opened. Before heading home, I ducked into a small shop on Bancroft, the kind that sells pastries shaped like roses and champagne in curated gold foils. I bought a bottle with a black ribbon. That night I promised myself we would drink it in mismatched glasses and make lists of everywhere we'd go and all the jokes we'd make about the radiator when it no longer mattered. On impulse, I added a candle that smelled like oranges and new paper. In the car, I put the champagne on the passenger seat and the candle on the floor, buckled my own seatbelt and pressed my palms to the wheel. My breath came shallow, the way it does when you've been underwater too long and just broken the surface. I thought about my grandfather's line, "Spend on what multiplies love," and felt something warm unfurl in my chest. I thought about Ethan's tired face and how I'd say it, how I'd make the number sound less like a cliff and more like a bridge. The sky was a pale pewter, same as Mr. Collins's tie. A soft drizzle darkened the road to a satin sheen. Traffic thickened near the river as we all funneled toward the same narrow bridge like marbles in a throat. I kept time with the wipers, the left one leaving a thin, unclean streak at the edge of its arc. Another small thing I'd meant to fix. Halfway across the bridge, the world gave a hard metal cough. A delivery truck ahead of me fishtailed. Subtle at first, a shrug. Then the rear swung wide, the tailgate flashing a rectangle of white letters. The car in front of me hit its brakes. I tapped mine. The truck jerked again, a bad dance step, and then it swung completely sideways, blocking 2 lanes in a single blunt gesture. Time did the thing it does in stories and documentaries and emergency room retellings. It stretched as if the seconds were chewing gum between 2 fingers. I saw the driver's face mirror mine, eyes too round, mouth too small. I saw a coffee cup lift off a dashboard and tip. I saw my own hands turn the wheel right, away from the guardrail, toward the shoulder, and it might have worked if the third car behind me hadn't realized too late we were all part of a single problem. The impact was not a sound so much as a sentence. A period, hard and final. Metal spoke in flinches. The airbag blossomed, a violence of white. The seatbelt bit my collarbone. The bottle on the passenger seat lifted, then flew, the black ribbon unspooling like film in a projector. Somewhere inside the white roar I thought stupidly, "Don't let it break. Don't let it break." Everything went dark in a tidy, efficient way, like a theater cutting to intermission. When I came back, sound arrived before sight. The beep of a monitor like a small, polite stranger. The wheeled squeak of something far away. A laugh in a hallway. Then light, too big at first, like standing too near a window at noon. "Marissa," a voice said, soft and professional. "Hey there. Don't move just yet." I obeyed. The world had edges again. A ceiling tile with a fleck that looked like a bird. A plastic bag. The fork, tilting on a stainless hook. A nurse with dark, coiled hair and a badge that read R. Vasquez, RN in cheerful blue. "You scared a lot of people," she said with a smile that warmed the sterile room by a few degrees. "You've been sleeping off a very bad day." "How long?" My throat rasped. My lips felt like paper. 20 hours since the ore. "We fixed what needed fixing." Her tone stayed light, but there was a line of iron under it, the way there is in bridge cables. "Broken ribs, a tibial fracture, concussion. It'll hurt, but you're here." My husband." The word cracked in the middle. "Ethan. Did he? We called the emergency contact in your phone," she said, and that was when I learned that the human face can be utterly kind while a sentence inside it is utterly neutral. "We left voicemails and a text. We'll try again now that you're awake." "Thanks," I managed. She adjusted the bed, which hummed and lifted me into a gentler angle. Pain announced itself in 2 choruses, one dull and one bright, each stubborn in its own way. I breathed carefully and counted to 8, then again. When Nurse Vasquez left, the room went soft. Behind the thin curtain, someone coughed. Down the hall, a cart clinked. A janitor's radio, devotional and tinny, floated past like a bee at a jar. I watched the door for Ethan. 1 hour. 2. The overhead light dimmed and the window became a dark square that reflected the pale flags of my bandages. My phone lay on the tray table. I reached for it with protest in every muscle and typed slowly. I'm in St. Bridget's. I had an accident. I'm okay, hurting but okay. Can you come please? The message turned blue. The dots appeared and danced, then vanished. Time became an unhelpful pet. A second nurse came in with a cup of ice chips and adjusted the 4-line. A young doctor, sharp-eyed, soft-voiced, asked me to follow her finger with my eyes, asked me what day it was, asked me whether I knew my name. Marissa, I said. I did not add Marissa Hale, who has an 8-figure problem and an empty plastic chair. By 9 I was tired enough to sleep and too anxious to do it. The phone remained mute. I told myself he'd show up in the morning with flowers he always forgets I'm allergic to, that he'd look wrung out and say he was stuck on a call and ran across town the minute he could. At 10 Mr. Collins called. Miss Hale, he said carefully, I heard from St. Bridget's. I wanted to send my concern and see what you need. How did you? I'm listed with the police report as a contact, given the folder in your passenger seat. There was a pause. May I say, it appears you drive with exquisite filing discipline. A small laugh escaped me, then snagged on a rib and dissolved into a hiss. Oh. Don't make me laugh. Apologies, he said genuinely. I'll keep this brief. Rest is your job now. But my office received a call late this afternoon from someone purporting to be your spouse, inquiring about certain authorizations. I did not proceed. We'll discuss when you feel able. My spouse did call you, I repeated. The words were odd in my mouth. He hasn't called me. Rest, Mr. Collins said, and the iron line was in his voice now. We'll talk tomorrow. And Miss Hale? Congratulations. That still stands even on a day like this. After we hung up, I stared at the ceiling until the fleck bird resolved into a fleck again. The radiator in the hospital didn't pop. The window didn't rattle. The room held itself. Somewhere down the hall, someone cried out, then quieted. If you're watching this, please hit like and subscribe and tell me where you're listening from. The script line slid into my head the way habit does. I'd started whispering those words into a phone 6 months earlier because life felt small and voiceless and I had needed a place to pour the overflow. I never expected anyone to watch. Then a few did. Then a few more. And here I was, a woman who had spent her 20s learning to keep her voice even, now relearning how to breathe. If you're watching this, I wanted to add, tell me, what do you call a day that begins with a fortune and ends with a stranger in your husband's chair? Near midnight, Nurse Vasquez returned with something that smelled like lavender and a promise. You're going to hate me in the morning, but you'll sleep. Do you? I swallowed. Do you think maybe he's stuck somewhere? My husband, I mean. She tucked the blanket corner with the care of someone who knows the difference between comfort and pity. People show you who they are when rooms are like this, she said softly. Sometimes they surprise you. Sometimes they don't. After she dimmed the light, the room shifted around me, rearranging itself into a shape I could climb into. The pain didn't vanish, but it put on a sweater. My eyes closed. In the restless pocket of sleep before morning, I dreamed I was back on the bridge. Only this time the truck didn't fishtail and the bottle didn't fly. The road unfolded ahead of me clean and dry, and the windshield wiper left no streak at all. I drove toward home, toward the small blue dot of Ethan's last message, and every light turned green. When I woke, the chair by my bed was still empty. The phone finally was not. A single new text. 3 words that landed like a coin in a well. Busy today. Later. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Then I set the phone down very carefully, called up the only strength I had, and exhaled one steady breath into the square room. Okay, I said to no one and to everyone. Later. Outside the window, the sky was the color of paper before words. Somewhere, maple leaves scissored against a fence. Somewhere, a bottle with a black ribbon was lying in a tow yard, whole or broken I couldn't say. Somewhere, a man who had promised to love me in sickness and in health was moving through a day that did not include my name. I closed my eyes and pictured the Coventry house the way I remembered it from the single weekend we visited when I was a child. A porch like a stage, windows tall enough to turn the sky into a painting, floors that spoke when you crossed them. It felt like a place you could run to when the world gave you a hard metal cough. Spend on what multiplies love, my grandfather had written. In the hushed morning, with my ribs counting their own slow clock and my leg a dull engine, I decided the first thing I would spend was breath. Then truth. Then courage. The rest could wait until later. For now, the only question that mattered was simple, and it had its own gravity. Why hadn't he come? The first days blurred together in the hospital. Pain medication dulled the sharp edges of my body, but nothing dulled the sharper edge of absence. Ethan had not come. I tried to convince myself he was busy, overwhelmed, unable to face the shock of nearly losing me. But as the hours turned into days, excuses ran thin. My phone remained silent except for curt replies. Busy. Later. Don't stress. Those were his words while I lay in a sterile room wondering why the man I had married could not manage even a single visit. On the fourth morning, Nurse Vasquez brought me breakfast I could barely eat. She hesitated before leaving and finally placed my phone in my hand. I think you should see something, she said softly. When I opened the screen, my stomach dropped. There he was, Ethan, standing in the warm glow of an art gallery, champagne glass in hand. His arm was wrapped around a woman with chestnut hair and sharp green eyes. The caption beneath the photo read, "New beginnings. Celebrating life." I zoomed in, heart pounding. The woman wasn't just anyone. I knew that face, though I couldn't place it at first. Then memory struck like cold water. Lena. My mother's whispered secret, the half-sister who had been raised elsewhere, spoken of only in fragments. Why was she with Ethan? Why no? Before I could process the betrayal, Mr. Collins arrived. He carried his usual briefcase, but his expression was heavier. "Marissa," he began, "there's something you need to know." He explained that Ethan had come to his office the day before, claiming I had died in the crash. He presented hastily prepared documents, insisting the inheritance should pass to him as surviving spouse. Collins had refused, citing inconsistencies, but the attempt alone was chilling. "He wanted me declared dead," I whispered, my throat tightening. "While I'm here, alive." Collins nodded grimly. "It's more than grief, Marissa. This is calculated." I turned back to the photo on my screen, to Ethan's triumphant smile and Lena's striking resemblance to me. My pulse hammered in my ears. Not only had he abandoned me, he had joined forces with my own blood. In that sterile room with monitors beeping steadily beside me, I felt a different rhythm rise inside, anger, disbelief, and a vow forming in silence. I would uncover every secret. I would stop them before they stole what was mine. The game had already begun. By the end of the week, whispers reached me through people I trusted. My friend Claire called, her voice tight with hesitation. "Marissa, Ethan's telling people you didn't survive the crash." The words hollowed me out. I sat upright despite the pain in my ribs. Dead. He was spreading that I was gone while I was fighting to breathe in this hospital bed. When Claire ended the call, I stared at the ceiling until the plaster blurred. Rage burned through the fog of medication. I knew Ethan had grown distant, but this was something darker. Something deliberate. The following morning, Mr. Collins returned with a file tucked under his arm. His eyes told me the truth before his mouth did. "Marissa," he said, lowering his voice, "your husband has filed paperwork declaring you deceased. He brought documents, death certificates, even a marriage license. He wants full access to your inheritance." My blood ran cold. Marriage license? With whom? Collins hesitated. "A woman named Lena. He introduced her as your half-sister." The room tilted. My grip tightened on the blanket. Lena. The woman in the photograph, the woman my mother had only mentioned in half-sentences and sighs. I had assumed she was out there somewhere, building a life far from mine. Now she was here, entangled with Ethan, wrapped inside this betrayal. That evening, as the hospital corridor dimmed, the door to my room opened. Ethan stepped inside, Lena just behind him. He carried himself with false concern, but his eyes flickered with impatience. "Mari," he said smoothly, "you're awake. What a relief." I said nothing. My gaze shifted to Lena. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable. Her eyes mirrored mine, the same shape and shade. She froze when our gazes locked, her confident posture faltering. For a moment she looked almost frightened. Ethan pressed on, pulling papers from his jacket. "The doctors think you might not be able to manage your affairs for a while. These forms will let me take care of everything for you. For us." His words dripped with practiced ease, but I saw the mask crack when I asked, steady and cold, "You mean the inheritance? The millions you've been chasing while telling the world I was dead?" Silence dropped heavy between us. Lena's breath caught. Ethan's smile tightened into something brittle. Behind them, Mr. Collins stepped out of the shadows of the room where he had been waiting. His voice cut clean through the silence. "Interesting story, Mr. Hale. Especially since I have video evidence of you presenting forged documents in my office. And hospital security is right outside." Ethan spun, shocked to see him there. Lena's face drained of color. She stared at me, trembling now as though something inside her had cracked open. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said the words that shattered the air. "She looks just like me because she is. Marissa, she's my sister. My twin." The monitor beside me beeped louder, matching the pounding in my chest. Everything I thought I knew about my life fractured in that moment. My husband had betrayed me. My inheritance was under attack. And standing in my hospital room was not only a co-conspirator but my own blood, an identical half of me I never knew existed. The betrayal was no longer just financial. It was family. After Lena's words, silence filled the room like smoke. I couldn't move, couldn't even blink. When my heart stumbled in my chest. I had grown up an only child, or so I had been told. Ethan broke the silence first, his voice sharp. "She doesn't know what she's saying. The medication, the stress." "Be quiet," I snapped. My voice was hoarse but stronger than I expected. "For once in your life, Ethan, just stop." Lena's eyes glistened. She pulled a photograph from her purse. Faded, edges curled. My breath caught when I saw it. 2 newborns wrapped in hospital blankets, a teenage girl with tear-swollen eyes holding them. My mother. And 2 babies. Ew. "That picture has been with me my whole life," Lena whispered. "My adoptive parents told me it was all I had from my birth mother. I thought maybe it was a mistake until I saw you." The room spun, the beeping of the monitor echoing my racing pulse. My throat tightened with 1,000 questions, but one rose above the rest. Why didn't anyone tell me? The answer came that night when I called my mother. She hesitated before visiting, but finally walked into my hospital room the next morning with a face pale as paper. She sat down, clasping her hands, and for a long time couldn't meet my eyes. "Marissa," she began, her voice cracking, "there's something I never told you. When you were born, you weren't alone. You had a sister. Twin. Lena." I felt the words punch through me even though part of me had already known. "Why?" My voice broke. "Why hide her from me?" Tears streaked down her cheeks. "We were drowning. Your father was gone, money was scarce, and my parents, your grandparents, they forced me to give one of you away. Said we couldn't afford to raise 2. They arranged for a closed adoption. But I thought it would be better for her." Lena's voice trembled. "I grew up loved. My adoptive parents gave me everything. But I always wondered where I came from. Why I was given away. I could hardly breathe. My life, the loneliness, the sense that something was always missing, suddenly made sense. I had been living half a story." Ethan shifted uncomfortably, sensing control slipping away. "This doesn't change the fact that we need to settle the estate." "Estate." I spat the word like poison. "You forged my death certificate. You married my sister behind my back. And you expect me to hand you my inheritance." Mr. Collins stepped forward, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Marissa, he won't succeed. We have the evidence. He'll face fraud charges and more." Ethan's mask finally cracked, his eyes flashing with the panic of a man who'd run out of lies. But I didn't look at him anymore. My gaze was on Lena, whose face mirrored my own in ways I had never noticed before. The same jawline, the same eyes, the same unspoken grief. My husband's betrayal had nearly destroyed me, but it had also ripped open the wall that kept us apart. "I lost you once," I whispered to Lena. "I won't lose you again." For the first time since the accident, I felt something break through the pain. A fragile but undeniable sense of belonging. But one truth remained: Ethan wasn't done yet. And I could see it in the way his jaw tightened, in the glint of desperation in his eyes. This wasn't over. Not yet. The air in the hospital room grew heavy, as if every truth confessed had thickened it. I could almost taste the fear rolling off Ethan. His perfect mask of confidence was unraveling thread by thread. "You've all lost your minds," he said, voice tight. "Marissa is confused, Lena is naive, and this lawyer is exploiting the chaos. None of this will stand up in court." Mr. Collins's tone was calm but cutting. "It already does. I have sworn statements, copies of the forged death certificate, And video evidence of you trying to claim an inheritance that doesn't belong to you. That's fraud. And bigamy. Both felonies. Ethan's face darkened. He turned to Lena, desperation sharpening his voice. Tell them the truth. We love each other. This is about us, not about money. Lena flinched as if the words themselves burned her. Her eyes, so much like mine, glistened with the shame of realization. You used me, she whispered. Every promise, every word. It was never about me. It was about her. About her money. Her voice cracked, but she didn't look away. I was a fool to believe you. Ethan's hand shot out to grab her wrist, but Lena yanked herself free and stepped back toward me. For the first time, we weren't strangers caught in the same storm. We were sisters standing together. I met Ethan's eyes. Once I would have seen the man I married, the artist who spoke about beauty in chaos. But now all I saw was a predator cornered. You told the world I was dead, I said, my voice steady. You forged my name, married my sister, and thought you could erase me. But I'm alive, Ethan. And this is the end of your game. He sneered. You don't have the strength to fight me. Collins gave a small signal and the door opened. 2 hospital security officers stepped inside. Their presence was quiet but final. Ethan's eyes darted between them, between Lena and me, between the folder in Collins's hand. His bravado drained away, leaving only the raw panic of a man whose empire of lies was collapsing. This isn't over, he hissed, backing toward the door as the officers closed in. You'll regret this, Marissa. Both of you. But his threats rang hollow now. The moment the handcuffs clicked, the room felt lighter. Lena sank into the chair beside my bed, her hands trembling. I can't believe I was part of this, she whispered. I reached for her hand, ignoring the pain in my ribs. He deceived us both. But you're not the enemy, Lena. You're my sister. Her eyes filled with tears. Do you mean that? After everything? I do, I said. Because losing you once was enough. I won't let him steal you from me again. For the first time since the accident, a fragile sense of victory flickered inside me. Ethan's lies had nearly broken me, but they had also given me back the sister I never knew I had. The inheritance, the estate, the money, all of it mattered less now. What mattered was this: truth had survived. And so had I. But deep down I knew Ethan wasn't finished. Men like him never surrendered easily. And the real battle was only beginning. The days after Ethan's arrest blurred into a whirlwind of legal meetings, statements, and paperwork. Mr. Collins handled most of it, but I insisted on being present. I wanted to hear every detail, every charge, every proof of his betrayal laid bare. Fraud, forgery, bigamy, attempted theft of inheritance. Each word was a nail in the coffin of the life I had once shared with him. When I finally saw Ethan in court, dressed in an orange jumpsuit instead of his carefully curated blazers, I felt no longing, no love, only clarity. He had been an illusion, a mask worn by a man who saw me as a bank account instead of a wife. Lena sat beside me through every hearing. At first she was quiet, haunted by guilt. But over time she grew stronger, her voice steadier when the judge asked her questions. She admitted she had believed his lies, but she also revealed how he had manipulated her, pressed her into a marriage meant only to cement his claim on my fortune. The evidence was overwhelming. Ethan had no escape. His sentence, 8 years in prison, was less than the damage he caused to my life, but it was enough. When the gavel struck, I finally exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Yet the real story wasn't in that courtroom. It was in the quiet moments after. At my uncle's estate, now legally mine, Lena and I stood together on the wraparound porch. The countryside stretched out before us, the same fields I had run through as a child. The same fields she had never seen until now. I keep thinking about everything I missed, Lena said softly. Birthdays. Secrets. Growing up together. I squeezed her hand. We can't change the past. But we have the future. And that's more than I thought I'd ever get. We moved slowly at first. Sharing coffee in the mornings, movie nights on the weekends, small rituals that built a bridge between us. With every laugh, with every story traded back and forth, the hollow space inside me began to close. One afternoon, as we unpacked boxes in the library, Lena found my grandfather's letter again. She read the line aloud, her voice steady. Spend on what multiplies love. Time, truth, courage. She looked at me with a smile that was half hers, half mine. I think he meant us. And for once I believed it. The money would help, yes. It could repair the estate, fund Lena's dream of studying psychology, give us both the freedom we deserved. But it was never the heart of this story. The heart was survival, truth, and family reclaimed in the unlikeliest way. Ethan had tried to erase me with lies, but instead he had uncovered the one bond strong enough to save me, my sister. As the sun set over the fields, I whispered a silent promise to myself. This is not the end of my story. It is the beginning.